All right, let's get into this really unique vision for South Korea's industrial future. It's a pretty bold idea that suggests the country's biggest strength, its world-class manufacturing, might actually be the very thing holding it back from its true purpose. So, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the paradox right at the heart of Korea's success. Then, we'll explore how the nation could shift from being a laborer to a leader, what its new global role could look like, the philosophy behind it all, and finally, what this means for Korea's biggest companies. Okay. So, South Korea is an absolute giant in high-tech manufacturing. I mean, we're talking about the world's best semiconductors, batteries, cars, you name it. But here's the twist. The thinking behind this explainer is that this very success, well, it creates a fundamental problem. It sounds a little crazy, right? But the central tension is this: being the best in the world at making things, basically being the world's best workshop, might be preventing the nation from evolving into its next and maybe more important role.
From this point of view, focusing so heavily on production isn't the end goal. It's just a phase, a really important one for sure, but still just a temporary stop on a much, much longer journey of development, not just for the nation, but for humanity.
And that brings us to the next big idea, that the whole point of work itself needs a rethink. It's not just about producing stuff, it's about being a vehicle for human growth and for creating leaders. If you look at Korea's economic history, it's like this incredible, fast-forwarded learning process. It started with simple things, making wigs and sewing clothes. Then it moved into heavy industry. And now, it's total dominance in high tech. But each of these stages wasn't just about the economy. It was a lesson, preparing the nation for whatever comes next.
Now, this is where it gets really provocative. The source redefines a laborer as a kind of modern-day slave, someone who just follows orders and trades their time for a paycheck, stuck in a system they don't control. So the goal isn't to be a better laborer, it's to move beyond being a laborer entirely and become a leader, a guide, a teacher, someone who creates and manages systems.
So if Koreans are supposed to move beyond being laborers, what's their new job on the world stage? Well, the answer proposed here is a complete pivot in what the country actually exports.
The vision is for South Korea to essentially package up its entire industrial playbook, the technology, the management skills, the work ethic, and export the whole thing. The point isn't just to build factories in other countries, it's to use those factories like schools, to help guide the development of other nations.
And this is where it all comes together. By teaching and developing the world's people, the source uses the word baeksang, which means the common people. Korea would be fulfilling a higher purpose. It would go from being a maker of products to being an essential mentor for all of humanity.
Now, this whole global mission, it's not just some economic plan. It's actually based on a really deep philosophical idea about what it means to truly possess something, whether we're talking about technology, money, or even land.
This one quote really nails the entire philosophy. Having it makes you a keeper. Using it well makes you the owner. In other words, just having stuff doesn't mean anything. True ownership comes from the purpose you give to what you have.
So here's the key difference. A keeper just guards their assets, right? But an owner uses those assets to help others grow. The argument is that Korea was given its amazing technology not just to sit on it and hoard it, but to use it for the good of all humankind. It totally reframes national wealth as a tool for global service.
Okay, so that's the big picture. But what does this actually look like on the ground for corporate giants like Samsung and Hyundai?
The thinking here is that we've kind of gotten it wrong when we think about why companies like Samsung are so popular around the world. It's not just about the cool phones and TVs. It's that when they move into a country, they create jobs, and they become a way for that nation's people to grow and improve their lives.
So this lays out a clear step-by-step model. Korean companies are seen as pioneers who don't just take value from a place, but actually build up the human capital there. The Korean employees become the mentors, guiding the local workers and creating this huge international corporate family.
And the scale of this is just wow. The source uses the example of a single company that employs 3 million people around the world. That's not just a workforce, that's practically a population. And in this model, the company's real power isn't on its balance sheet. It's in the millions of human lives it's actively shaping and developing. So in the end, this whole vision forces us to ask a pretty big question about what national success even means. Is a country's greatest gift to the world the things it makes? Or is it the people it helps to create, both inside its borders and far beyond?